from one of his neighbors there, and they were real good friends. And he got sick, and so Dad said, "Well, I've got 5 boys here at home. We'll get down there and help you out." And he said, "Well, I'm just about out of wood for the house," and I said, "If you go out and cut some of them dead trees out of the grove." They had the great big groves, everybody did down there in Nebraska. And anyway, they went out, and Dad took his 5 of his boys with him anyway, and went down there to do it. And he was cutting this tree down, and he said, "Now you boys stay when we get almost cut through." Of course, they're cutting them by hand. They didn't have buzz saws or anything then, but he was doing it with a old pull saw, 2 men on one saw, and then when it got about ready to go, he said, "Okay, boys, get way back," 'cause he said that's gonna fall right there. He'd point where it was gonna fall, and he said, "Well, I'll take that last. I don't want you close where you get hurt." And he said he'd cut that last cut to make it fall, and they'd saw them at a slant so that they'd fall a certain way. Anyway, he did that. When he did, the tree fell right where he said it was going to go, but it didn't exactly, but because anyway, it hit another tree and popped a limb about so big around off, about 20, 30 feet long, I guess. And that one hit him right square in the head, and he never knew what hit him. He smashed his head plumb flat. And he was 45 years old, and 15 or 12 kids. If he wouldn't have got killed, I probably would have had another half a dozen uncles.
Wow.
Well, Uncle Oscar was 21, and Dad was 15, and then on down to a year old. Joe was 1. So they were scattered out. They'd have probably had some more kids anyway if he wouldn't have got killed. She never did remarry. She was 42 or 3 when he got killed.
How did she take care of all the rest of those kids?
Huh?
How did she take care of all of her kids?
That's the story I want to tell you.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure the year, but my dad told me this in that time between Christmas, and he died on the 3rd of February, but sometime in that month he told me this story, and he for some reason he said, don't pass that around all of the community. He said, "I want you to know it." And I don't know whether Mom ever knew it or not, but I just kind of tried to push it back in my mind, and until all these people were dead, all of her brothers and sisters, all 20 of my aunts and uncles are dead. And so anyway, that's what happened was when he got killed, the big boys did the farming. He was a big farmer. The guy that got killed was. He had like 300-400 acres of farm ground with horses. Wow. Is a lot of work.
It's a lot back then.
But he had 5 boys, and I can remember seeing the barn that they used to keep them in, and they kept about 10, 12 teams in and put them in every night and fed them the grain and stuff. Anyway, they well, I think about 2 years that they did that, and then a couple of them got married, and one got in this World War I, got drafted, and Dad, he quit school at 15 to run the place, because the older ones were already married. One of them was, Oscar was anyway, and she wanted him back in school. Grandma did, so she decided that she was going to sell the place and buy a house in town, because she had 5 girls that all wanted to be either teachers or nurses, and they wanted a college education. And there was a ag college, which is still there and does it. It's a big agriculture college, about the same as Brookings and stuff. But anyway, that was on the north side of Lincoln, and so she wanted to head her sale, and on the sale they offered the land for sale, and it all sold, and it was just those booming years, about 1918, just when the war was over with, and seemed to be quite a little money around. And
100 years ago.
And she had 10 or 12 real good teams with full set of harness and stuff, and I don't know, she had some cattle, but I never did hear the figure, but Dad says it brought her, she got cash out of it all, having an auction sale, and I don't ever remember a figure, but I did figure it up, just guessing at what the markets were at that time, and it must have been about $150,000 with the land and the horses and everything. But that could be off 20 or 30,000.
That'd be a lot of money at those
But it's
days.
just an estimate, but anyway, she took it in and deposited it in the bank, and was going to use it to buy a house by this college down there in Lincoln, and because these girls were all still at home, and they all wanted to go to college, and so anyway, she'd done that, and she had all this money in cash in the bank. It was in the bank. Well, then the government come out with something happened, I think it was in 1919, that, I don't know, but anyway, they closed all the banks one night. I think they'd warned the bankers some ahead of time, but this particular day anyway, they never told anybody but the head guy in the bank, and then the other workers didn't know a thing about it. I mean, they was working there, but they didn't know anything about it. But the government come out with a thing to say that tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, when the bank's supposed to open, have signs out there that this bank has been closed by the United States government, and the door will not open today or maybe never, and that was the way they found out about it. Was the public all coming, and the money just was gone. It was there, but the government inspectors come out, or I don't know, police or whoever, come out and stood guard at the bank and wouldn't let anybody. Well, anyway, the head guy of the bank was a good friend of my grandmother and grandfather. That he'd been killed a year or two before this, and well, probably 3 years before that. But anyway, when she still had that cash in the bank when they come out with this thing, and I guess she was just heartsick that she didn't have any land and didn't have any money to buy the house in town.
And how many kids?
And well, she had 12 kids yet, and well, and some of them had been in the army enough that they didn't have any money when they come out. They was only getting $10 a month or something like that at that time, and so they didn't have any money. Anyway, that night she heard something branch off a tree was hitting her window, and she thought that was funny. It said it's making a noise, scratching against her window, and she thought, well, and she got up and went and looked out the window, and down there was a man standing down there with this twig 15, 20 feet tall, because it was a 2-story house. I remember the house. But anyway, it was the head guy in the bank, and he had a big sack of something, and he said, "Did you hear about the bank closing?" And she said, "Yeah," and said, we don't know what we're going to do. And I don't know if it was exactly the same night or the next night. I think it was probably the next night, because they locked it up. But anyway, this guy knew about it. Make a long story short, why, he had taken all of her money and put it all into a sack in cash. And those days, they had $500 bills and $1,000 bills. Like now, they only got $100 bills. That's the biggest you can buy, you know. But then it was the bigger.
Yeah.
So anyway, still had. Well, I'm just saying, $100,000 to $150,000.
Wow.
And that's quite a few bills.
And he
But it was
brought
all in this sack, and he rode his saddle horse out there, 20 miles from, in the middle of the night.
Wow.
And he'd wait until it was pitch dark so that everybody'd be in bed.
It had to be a secret. 'Cause he
In
couldn't
those
do it
days
for
when he
everybody.
didn't have any electricity,
Oh,
they went to bed pretty early, you know. And
Wow.
anyway, he gave her he said, she said, "Well, you're going to get in trouble over this." And he said, "I thought this thing out," and he said, I've known it for several days it was going to happen on a certain day, but he said, nobody else knows a thing about it. And he said, I just couldn't live with myself if I'd let you go broke and with that family.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it makes me get very emotional every time I think about it. But
Yeah.
anyway, he gave her all that cash, and my grandmother Flora said, "Well, you were going to get in trouble over it." And he says, "No," he said, I went back to the deposit slip that I made when you brought the money in. I went through the whole system and followed that. It'd only been with 6 or 8 months since she'd put it in the bank, but she hadn't got the house bought yet, so she left it in there.
That's amazing.
Anyway, he said, "I've covered my tracks," and he said, but for God's sakes, don't tell anybody till I'm dead. And that's kind of what Dad told me, but he didn't tell me that till I was 18. So
Wow.
so it'd been. Well, I was just trying to think. 30 years, I suppose, since that happened.
Wow.
And
But
then all 12 kids went to college, right?
huh?
All 12 kids went to college.
Yeah, they all went to college.
Your dad went to
but,
college
But anyway,
Yeah.
Wow. Oh
she
yeah.
she got the money, and then he had it all figured out how to tell her to spend it. And for God's sakes, don't go in there and pay cash for it. Keep some of it buried here at home or whatever you have to do.
The
So
mattress.
and pay off so much a year, like most people was having to do to buy a house. I don't know what to give for it or anything about it, but he told her to just don't go spending a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Or-
Otherwise, she could easily get
Well, he said
robbed.
that the federal government would be after everybody then that was in on it, and she didn't like to do anything dishonest, and
But it was her money to begin
he
with.
said, well, it was his,
Yeah.
and the government had no reason for being able to take it,
Yeah.
but
That's amazing.
anyway, that's what he, and that, no, I'd never known about it until when they told Dad that he had 6 weeks to live. Well, sometime in that 6 weeks, why he told me about it, and I still don't know whether Mom ever knew about it, because she lived another 45, 50 years after that. And I'd never heard the story before, except when he told me, and he told me not to tell anybody
Wow.
until he was dead, and my brothers and sisters. He said, but anyway, I don't know what she told the kids, whether she told them that she just kept it in a sack and had never put it in the banks, the reason she hadn't lost all the money or not. I suppose that's what she told them,
Yeah.
but anyway, but there's another nice part about that story was when Dad come up here and bought that place in that immigrant car. They went to stay overnight in the hotel there in Underwood. They had a big 2-story hotel there, close to the railroad tracks. And when he went to that hotel, there's a bunch of guys sitting in there playing cards and stuff. And he told him he was gonna move out there. They had that land bought down, it'd be 5 miles south and 4 miles east of Underwood, so it'd been 9 miles at least to the
That would have
coast.
changed my life.
To
Living
live so
9
far
miles
away.
from town, I never would have had any friends.
Well,
She would have run away.
anyway, the guy said, "Well, we just bought this. I paid down payment on it," and they said, "Well, I see you got a little baby there. What are you going to do when she gets in school?"
No school.
Dad says, "Well, I don't know. We hadn't really thought about that yet." Said the baby's only 8 weeks old, and we was planning this move and everything, and said, "I guess we hadn't even thought about school." and one of the guys spoke up and says, "Well," says, I think you could sell that tomorrow down there if you wanted to, and but I've got a place just a mile north of town that I'll sell you."
Nice.
And
Thank God.
Sounds like
so you know why he told him that. But anyway, he got his place sold that he hadn't been able to sell, I guess. But anyway, he sold that to Dad and moved in with his daughter and her husband across the road where Jensen's live. and Dad started trying to sell the land, could never get his sold down there. Nobody had any money, because that law wasn't just in Nebraska; it was all over the United States. That they closed every bank in the. And it called it Banker's Holiday, is what
That's
in the
terrible.
history books.
And so everyone's money was just gone?
I don't know that part of the story, and I'd like to research it.
I don't know how people would ever trust a bank again after that.
That was
Huh?
before they were federally insured, I think. That's probably what
Maybe that was.
caused it.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
you'd have to
I really don't know that part of the story, but I know the personal end of it. But anyway, Dad had borrowed $10,000 from Aunt May. That was one of his old maid sisters, and she was a teacher in the college up in Valley City, North Dakota. And she was just tighter than all Billy Heck. I mean, you couldn't get $1 out of her for nothing usually, but she had money anyway, and Dad talked her into. No, he'd borrowed the money from her to buy that south place. That's what it was. He'd borrowed the money and bought that place down south of town. Well, then he couldn't get it sold to buy the other one, so he called his mother up, and she told him that he thought that she would sign with him or something on it to buy the place that I'm on now. And so that's what he did. Well, that was the same money that banker'd give back to her. She wouldn't have had a dime. She'd have been on welfare. Well, there wasn't welfare in those days. If you didn't move in with family, you starved.
They have poor farms here that you can go to now.
Huh?
They have poor farms where people used
Yeah,
to
they
live.
did.
Yeah, they have them here that you can still go to.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have some renovated poor farms.
Anyway, I guess that's the gist of the whole thing.
That's
Was
cool.
we wouldn't have ever ended up on that place
Yeah.
if it wouldn't have been for that
Banker who did the right thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it changed the course of everybody's life.
And that was why he didn't want to tell anybody around, because they'd wonder where in the world, how she kept some money, and how her mother with 12 kids could have enough money to loan him $5,000 or $10,000, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so when he told me, why, I just locked it in my mind that I was never going to tell anybody till everybody was dead. And they're all dead now but me.
So your brothers and sisters don't know?
Well, they don't know
Never
either.
knew.
How about Elsie?
I told her the other night, and that's the
Oh,
first
okay.
time she'd ever heard it.
Oh, okay.
Was here just 3 or 4 days ago, or
Wow.
last Sunday's well. Yeah, this past Sunday, yeah. Well, she was down there, and I told her the same story I'm telling
Yeah.
you. But I just thought it's funny how things will
Yeah.
work, just because everybody was trying to be as honest in their own minds. They were honest doing it.
Yeah.
It was her own money,
Yeah. That's really cool.
but and that banker could have done the same thing and pocketed it all, you know.
Yep. You could have.
I didn't
And
even think about that.
he didn't. He gave it all to her. So, but as the way the story was told to me, that was the only one that Dad ever knew that got their money back. Everybody
Yeah.
else didn't. And I don't know, I don't know how you'd go about researching that. I'd like to know what that government document was and stuff that
Yeah, that just seems
come out.